The night was cold, and the wind howled through the broken trees. A human starship had fallen from the sky, its metal body torn apart by fire. The wreck lay in the valley like a wounded beast, glowing faintly with smoke from inside the broken ship stumbled a lone human traveler, his clothes torn, his skin marked by scratches. He was alive but barely. He moved slowly through the strange land. Each step felt heavy. His breath came out in white clouds. He had no idea where he had landed. Around him stretched hills covered in silver grass, and above, 2 moons shone brightly in the alien sky. The silence was broken only by the hiss of the wind and the crackle of burning metal behind him. The human's name was Daniel. He whispered it to himself, as if to remember he was still alive. He had no weapon, no food, no shelter. All he had was the will to survive. But as he pushed forward, he felt eyes watching him from the shadows. The kind of eyes that were not human. Daniel reached a ruined stone wall that looked like part of an old village. The stones were covered in moss, broken huts scattered around. It was clear someone had once lived here, but now it was empty, or so he thought. Then, soft footsteps came from behind the stones. Daniel froze. His hand reached for a sharp piece of metal from his wreck. Holding it like a knife, from the darkness, 2 small figures appeared. They were not human. Their ears were long and pointed, covered in fur. Their eyes glowed faintly in the moonlight, and small tails swayed nervously behind them. They looked like children, but their features were sharp and feline. Tiny alien cat girls. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. They couldn't be older than 13 or 14 in human years. Their faces were delicate, but their eyes were filled with suspicion and hunger. They wore torn rags, their fur matted with dirt. One clutched a stick, as if ready to strike. The other held a broken piece of pottery, like a weapon. For a moment, no one moved. The wind pushed between them, carrying the scent of smoke and fear. Then one of the girls hissed softly, her small fangs flashing in the moonlight. She stepped forward and pointed her stick at Daniel. The other quickly moved beside her, her tail puffing up as she whispered something in a language he couldn't understand. Daniel lowered the piece of metal slowly. He raised his hands to show he meant no harm. His voice was weak but calm. "I am not your enemy," he said. His words were carried by the night wind. The 2 cat girls glanced at each other. Their ears twitched. Their eyes narrowed. They didn't trust him. Then the smaller one stepped closer. Her golden eyes locked onto him. "You belong to me," she said in broken human words. Her voice was thin, but her meaning was sharp. Daniel blinked in shock before he could answer. The other girl hissed louder and shouted, "No. He is mine." Their words struck him like thunder. These 2 fragile-looking survivors weren't just afraid. They were fighting over him. They stood with their small weapons raised, glaring at each other as if one wrong step would start a war. Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. He had stumbled into something far stranger than survival. The silence grew heavier. He saw how thin they were, how their ribs showed under their clothes. Their tails trembled from weakness, not just anger. These weren't warriors, they were starving children. Their fight was not only about claiming him, but about who would live and who would be left alone. Daniel took a slow breath. He lowered himself to one knee, placing the sharp metal piece on the ground. He looked at them with tired but steady eyes. "I will not hurt you," he said softly. The girls stared at him, still suspicious, but their eyes flickered with something else, hope. For the first time since the crash, Daniel felt the weight of choice pressing down on him. He had thought survival meant finding food, water, and shelter, but now he realized survival meant something greater. It meant facing the rivalry of 2 alien cat girls who refused to share, and in their eyes, he saw not just fear, but desperation. The wind carried the faint sound of distant howls. Something else moved in the night. Predators, perhaps. Daniel felt his pulse quicken. He was stranded, wounded, and caught between 2 rivals who both wanted him as their own. and as the two tiny alien cat girls tightened their grip on their makeshift weapons, glaring at each other with blazing eyes, Daniel finally understood the truth. His arrival had not saved them, it had started a battle he could not yet see the end of. The morning light spilled across the valley. Silver grass swayed softly in the wind, and the smoke from Daniel's crashed ship finally began to fade. Daniel sat near the ruins of the stone wall, his body aching. His clothes were still torn, but his eyes stayed sharp. Beside him, the two alien cat girls crouched like watchful shadows. Their tails twitched, their ears flicked at every sound. They had not left him during the night. Instead, they had taken turns staying close to him, but it was not kindness, it was rivalry. One brought him a handful of strange berries at dawn, placing them proudly at his feet. The other glared and pushed a small piece of dried meat in his hand. "Eat." "Mine," she said in her broken voice. Her tail flicked proudly, as if daring him to refuse. Daniel looked at both gifts. His stomach twisted with hunger, but his heart tightened. He could feel the sharp tension between them. If he chose one, the other would be wounded. Their eyes were too desperate, too fierce. He could not choose, so he split the food, forcing a weak smile. "Both," he whispered. But even that simple act didn't stop the fire between them. The smaller girl, with golden eyes, hissed softly. Her hand clung to Daniel's sleeve, as if to mark him. The taller one growled low, her ears flattening as she pulled him away from her rival's touch. Their rivalry was silent, but sharp. Every movement, every glance carried claws as the sun climbed higher. Daniel tried to explore the ruins. He needed water. He needed to understand where he was. But wherever he went, the two girls followed. If he looked at one, the other would step in front of him. If he spoke to one, the other would interrupt. Their tiny frames moved like shadows around him, never leaving his side. At one point, Daniel bent to drink from a small stream trickling through the rocks. Before he could scoop water, the golden-eyed girl pushed forward, dipping her hands first and holding it up for him. "Mine," she whispered. Her eyes pleaded for him to accept her care, but the other girl leaped in, knocking her hand aside. "No, mine," she snapped, splashing the water onto his lips herself. The fight nearly ended with claws, but Daniel stepped back quickly, his voice sharp. "Enough." The girls froze, their tails stiffened, their eyes dropped. For a brief moment, Daniel saw fear in them, not fear of each other, but fear of losing him. He realized they were not only rivals for affection, they were rivals for survival. Alone, they had no strength, no family, no hope. Together they might have endured, but now, with him here, they had turned against each other. Later, as the day warmed, Daniel heard whispers carried on the wind, voices, not human, deeper and older. He followed the sound carefully, and the two girls followed close. They led him to the edge of the ruins, where old aliens, gray-skinned and heavy with years, watched from a distance. Their eyes were filled with suspicion and judgment. One of the elders stepped forward, his voice like gravel. "The catlings never share," he said in the human tongue. His words were slow, heavy, filled with warning. "One will claim you, or both will be cast away." Daniel felt his chest tighten. He looked down at the two tiny cat girls, who clung closer to him now. Their ears trembled, their tails wrapped tightly around their legs. The golden-eyed girl pressed her forehead against his arm, whispering something he couldn't understand. The taller one only stared at him with desperate eyes, as if begging him to choose her. The elder's voice grew colder. "This is the law of their blood," he said. "Refuse to choose, and they both are nothing." Daniel's mind spun. He had survived battles, storms, and the cold silence of space. But nothing felt heavier than this moment. He was not ready to decide. He didn't even understand their world. Yet the weight of their future pressed on his shoulders. The girls sensed it too. Their rivalry burned hotter. That night, when the stars spread across the sky, they fought in whispers, their voices sharp, their claws scratching the dirt. each time Daniel closed his eyes. He woke to their angry hisses, each time he tried to speak. They silenced him with their desperate words. Mine, no, mine. Daniel sat alone. Staring at the fire, the girls glared at each other across the flames, refusing to sleep. Their eyes blazed with determination. He had thought they were fragile, helpless, but now he understood something deeper. They were willing to fight until only one remained, and yet, as he watched their thin arms and trembling bodies, his heart ached. These were not just rivals. They were children who had lost everything. They had been broken by hunger, by fear, by the cruel laws of their people. And now, their survival had become a battle over him. The fire crackled, and Daniel whispered to himself, "How can I choose?" The two tiny alien cat girls heard him. Their ears twitched, their eyes softened for just a moment. But then, almost at the same time, they whispered the same word in broken human speech. Mine, and with that, Daniel knew the night ahead would not bring peace. It would only sharpen the rivalry and bring him closer to a choice that could change everything. The morning after the long night was quiet. The fire had burned to ash, and Daniel sat with heavy eyes. He had not slept, not really, each time he closed his eyes. The sharp whispers of the two tiny alien cat girls dragged him back awake. Mine, one would say, and the other would answer, no, mine. Their rivalry was like a blade pressed against his chest. As the sun rose, he noticed shadows moving near the ruins. The elders had returned. Their gray faces were stern, their steps heavy with judgment. One of them carried a long staff, carved with strange markings. They stopped at the edge of the camp, watching him, their eyes not on him, but on the girls. Beside him, Daniel stood slowly, his body sore from the crash and sleeplessness. "What do you want?" he asked. His voice was hoarse but steady. The elder with the staff stepped forward. His eyes glowed faintly under the morning light. "You do not understand their ways," he said in slow human tongue. "You cannot, not yet." Daniel frowned. His eyes went to the two cat girls. They clung close to him, tails wrapped tightly, ears flat against their heads. Their small hands grabbed his arm, as if they knew what the elder would say. The old alien's voice deepened. "The catlings do not share, not food, not territory, and never a mate. A human may think to be kind, to give equally, but to them, such kindness is cruel. To delay the choice is to tear them apart. One must be chosen, or both will fall." Daniel's breath caught, his heart hammered. He looked down at the girls. They both stared back with wide eyes. Fear burned inside them. The smaller one with golden eyes pressed herself against his chest, whispering, "Mine." The taller one hissed softly, clutching his sleeve, "No, mine." Their voices shook like leaves in the wind. The elder's staff struck the ground. The sound echoed like thunder in the ruins. "The hidden tradition," he said. "When two rivals claim the same, the one claimed must decide. That is our law. That is our blood." Daniel's stomach tightened. His mind rebelled. He wanted to shout at them, to demand why such a cruel rule existed, but the words caught in his throat. He knew enough of survival to understand that every people had their customs, and yet, this custom placed him in the center of a storm he never asked for. The elder turned away, his gray robes swaying in the wind. "Choose soon, human," he said, "or they will be cast away. Neither will be allowed to stay in our clan. They will starve in the wild, or be taken by raiders. That is the law." Daniel's fists clenched, his teeth ground together. The girls clung tighter, trembling. Their eyes begged him without words. His heart twisted. How could he choose? How could he tell one that she was enough, and the other that she was nothing? That night, the rivalry sharpened. The two tiny alien cat girls no longer whispered. They shouted. Their voices rose in broken human words, their claws flashing as they fought. They circled the fire like wildcats, each trying to prove she was stronger, faster, more worthy. Daniel stepped between them, his arms raised. "Stop," he roared, His voice broke through the night. The girls froze, their bodies trembling, tears brimming in their bright eyes. Daniel's chest heaved as he looked at them. "This will destroy you both," he whispered. "I can't let this happen." The golden-eyed girl sobbed, pressing her forehead into his chest. "Choose me, human, please. I fight for you." Her words were broken, but her meaning clear. The taller one bared her small fangs, her voice desperate. "No, him mine. I protect. I give life." Daniel's head spun. He had faced storms, soldiers, and death in the void of space. But this was heavier than any battle. These girls were not fighting for pride. They were fighting for the right to survive. To be abandoned would be death. Later, when the fire was low, and the girls finally lay down, still glaring at each other even. As they drifted to uneasy sleep, Daniel sat awake, staring at the stars. His mind echoed with the elders' words. The hidden tradition. Choose one, or lose both. He thought of his past, the comrades he had lost, the oaths he had broken. He remembered standing on battlefields, where choice always meant life or death. And now, stranded in this strange land, he held the lives of two tiny alien catgirls in his hands. The wind carried distant howls again, predators roaming the hills. Daniel's jaw tightened. If he refused to choose, they would all be lost. If he obeyed the tradition, one would break. He closed his eyes, whispering to himself, "There has to be another way." But in the shadows, the two catgirls stirred, their eyes opening, golden and silver, each one watching him. Each one whispering the same word that had haunted him since the crash. "Mine." And Daniel knew the storm of their tradition was only beginning. The air inside the ruined village grew heavy. By now, everyone knew the human was at the center of the rivalry. The elders whispered from the shadows, and even the younger aliens gathered at a distance to watch. Their glowing eyes followed Daniel wherever he went. He could feel the weight of their judgment pressing down on him. The two tiny alien catgirls clung closer than ever. They no longer bothered to hide their hatred for each other. One walked at his right, the other at his left. Their tails flicked angrily whenever the other drew near. Their small hands grabbed his sleeve like chains. Daniel felt torn in half. On the third day since the crash, the elder with the staff appeared again. His gray eyes were cold, his voice heavy. "It is time," he said. "No more delay. The tradition demands loyalty. The one you claim will stay, the other will be cast away." Gasps spread through the crowd. The golden-eyed girl trembled and buried her face against Daniel's chest. The taller one snarled, baring her small fangs. "Choose me, human," she begged. "I give life. I protect." Her voice was harsh, but broken by fear. Daniel's chest ached. He looked at them both, their thin arms, their shaking bodies, their desperate eyes. He wanted to shout, to defy the cruel law, but before he could speak, the elder struck his staff against the ground. The sound echoed through the ruins like thunder. The trial of loyalty begins. The clan formed a circle, dragging Daniel and the two girls inside. The fire in the center crackled, throwing long shadows across the stone walls. The trial was simple, but cruel. The human must declare one, and the other must step aside. If he refused, the law would exile all three. The girls stood on either side of him, their ears flat, their tails stiff. Their eyes blazed with a mix of fear and determination. For them, this was not a game, it was everything. Their future, their survival, their very place in the world. Daniel swallowed hard, his mind spun. How could he speak words that would crush one heart? How could he say yes to one and no to the other? He looked at the faces in the crowd, stone cold, waiting for him to bend, but before he could speak, the golden-eyed girl stepped forward. Her small voice trembled. Mine, she whispered. "I fight. I give love. I keep him alive." Tears slid down her cheeks as she clung to his arm. "Do not take him from me," the taller girl cried out, pushing her rival back. "No, mine," she hissed, her voice breaking. I protect. I never leave. I give all to him." Her claws dug into the dirt as if she would fight anyone who dared take him away. The crowd murmured. Some nodded with approval, others shook their heads. To them, this was tradition, nothing more, but to Daniel, it was a nightmare. His heart was torn by the sight of these two children fighting for something no child should fight for. He dropped to one knee, holding both their hands. His voice shook. "Stop this, both of you." The crowd gasped. The elder scowled. "There is no both," he thundered. "One or none." Daniel's eyes burned with defiance. "They are not animals. They are not possessions. They are children." His voice rose, breaking through the murmurs. "How can you ask me to destroy one to save the other?" The elder's staff struck the ground again, "Because that is the way of their blood." He growled, "Refuse, and you doom them both." The fire crackled, casting sparks into the night. Daniel's breath came hard and fast. His hands trembled. As the two girls clung to him tighter, their voices blended in a chorus of desperation, both whispering the same word over and over. "Mine, mine, mine." The circle around them grew silent. The clan waited. The law demanded. The human's heart pounded in his chest. He could not delay any longer, yet even as the pressure crushed him, his mind whispered something else. There has to be another way. But before he could act, a sudden sound ripped through the air, a distant horn. The ground trembled beneath their feet. Daniel's eyes snapped upward, and the clan turned in fear. From beyond the hills came the howls of raiders, the same ones who had burned villages and hunted the weak. Their torches lit the horizon. Their war cries echoed into the valley. The trial was not yet finished, but the enemy had arrived. The elder's face turned pale. The circle broke apart. Panic spread through the clan. The two cat girls clung to Daniel's arms, their eyes wide with terror. For the moment, the law was forgotten. Daniel's heart pounded. He looked at the frightened crowd, then at the two trembling girls. His voice hardened with resolve. "If you want a trial of loyalty," he said, "then watch. Tonight, I will prove my loyalty to them both." The elders stared at him, shocked. The cat girls clung to him with renewed hope. And as the horns of the raiders grew louder, Daniel stood tall, ready to face the storm. The trial of loyalty was no longer about words. It was about survival, and survival was a choice he had already made. The horns of the raiders echoed through the valley. Their sound was sharp and cruel, carried on the wind like a promise of blood. The ground shook under marching feet, and the orange glow of torches spread across the hills. The clan's whispers turned to cries of panic. Daniel stood in the broken circle, the two tiny alien cat girls clutching his arms, their eyes wide with terror, their tails curled tight around their legs. The trial of loyalty was forgotten in an instant. Fear drowned tradition. The elder with the staff shouted orders. His deep voice cracked the night air. "To the walls! Defend the ruins! Keep the young inside!" But even as he spoke, the fear in his eyes betrayed him. The raiders were many, far too many. Daniel's heart pounded. His body still ached from the crash, but the fire inside him rose. He had been in battles before. He knew the look of men who wanted blood. He could not stand by. Not when the girls clung to him, trembling. Not when he had promised to protect them. The raiders came fast, dark shapes with sharp blades, their armor patched together with bone and steel. Their eyes glowed in the torchlight. They howled as they charged. The clan warriors raised spears, their voices shaking as they shouted back. Daniel grabbed a broken beam of wood from the ruins, his hands wrapped tight around it. The cat girls tried to hold him back, their voices desperate. "No, stay. You die," they cried in their broken words. But Daniel shook his head. "If I die, I die protecting." The raiders crashed into the village like a storm. The clash of steel and screams filled the night. Sparks flew, blood spilled. The clan fought hard, but they were being pushed back. Daniel swung the beam like a soldier. His body moved on instinct. The first raider lunged at him. and Daniel struck. The wood cracked across the raider's skull, dropping him to the ground. The girls gasped, their eyes shining with awe and fear. Another raider rushed him, blade raised. Daniel blocked with the beam, the steel cutting deep into the wood. With a roar, he shoved forward, slamming his knee into the raider's chest. The enemy fell, choking on blood. The golden-eyed girl screamed as another raider leaped at her. Daniel turned, his arms burning with strength. He swung the beam wide, smashing it into the raider's side. Bones cracked. The girl clung to him, her small voice shaking. "You save! You save!" The taller girl was not helpless either. She picked up a sharp stone and hurled it, striking a raider's face. The man stumbled, and she hissed like a wildcat, her tail high. Daniel's chest swelled with pride and fear. Teeny as they were, they fought with hearts bigger than warriors. But the raiders kept coming, more and more, like a tide of shadows. Daniel's arms grew heavy, his breath came in gasps, blood trickled from a cut on his shoulder. Still, he did not stop. Each swing was for survival, each strike for the two. Catgirls clinging to his side, the elder fought too, his staff glowing faintly with strange power. Each strike from him sent sparks of energy into the raiders. But he was old, his movements slowed, his strength was fading. The clan cried out as their line broke. Raiders poured through the gap. Their howls filled the night. Daniel's heart twisted. They would all be slaughtered, unless he looked down at the girls. Their small faces streaked with dirt and tears, yet their eyes burned with fierce loyalty. They had refused to let him go, refused to let him choose. And now, in the chaos of battle, they stood with him against death itself. Daniel gritted his teeth, his voice rose like thunder. "We fight, together." The girls nodded, their tiny hands grabbed sharp stones, broken wood, anything they could hold. And for the first time, they did not hiss at each other. They stood side by side, ready to die for him. The raiders roared and charged. Daniel swung, the beam shattering on impact. He picked up a fallen blade, the cold steel heavy in his hand. He fought like a man possessed. Each strike sent another raider to the dirt. Each scream echoed through the ruins. The golden-eyed girl darted forward, clawing at a raider's leg, distracting him long enough for Daniel to strike him down. The taller one leaped onto another's back, biting and scratching until Daniel pulled her away just in time. Their courage was wild, reckless, but it kept him alive. The battle raged until the torches began to flicker, until the cries of the raiders turned from rage to fear. They had expected an easy hunt, but instead they met a storm, a human storm, backed by two tiny alien catgirls who refused to break. At last, the raiders began to retreat, dragging their wounded with them. Their horns sounded again, but this time it was not a call to charge, it was a call to flee. The ruins fell silent. The ground was wet with blood. The clan lay gasping, wounded but alive. The elder leaned on his staff, his gray eyes fixed on Daniel. For the first time, there was no judgment in them, only respect. Daniel dropped the blade, his chest heaved with exhaustion. The two catgirls clung to him, trembling. They pressed their faces into his chest, whispering broken words over and over. Safe, safe, safe. And Daniel realized the truth. Their fight was not just for him, it was for survival. And in the heat of battle, they had proven something even the elders could not deny. They did not want his strength alone, they wanted his heart. And now, after this night, he could no longer escape the choice waiting for him. The ruins were quiet after the battle. The fire of torches had faded, and the moans of the wounded echoed in the night. Smoke drifted above the broken walls, carrying the bitter smell of blood. Daniel sat on a fallen stone, his body trembling with exhaustion. His clothes were torn, his shoulder bleeding, but his eyes remained sharp. The two tiny alien catgirls sat on either side of him. Their hands clung to his arms. Their small bodies leaned against him as if he was their only shield. Their ears twitched at every sound. their tails coiled tightly. They whispered softly, the same word they had whispered since the beginning. Mine, mine. The elder approached slowly, leaning on his staff. His gray eyes studied Daniel. There was no hatred in them now, only something heavier. You fought well. Human, he said. You saved us. You saved them. He pointed at the two girls, who glared at each other, even while pressing close to Daniel. But the law still stands. Daniel's heart sank. He had hoped the battle would change everything, that the clan would see the girls' bravery and spare them the cruel choice. But the elder's words shattered that hope. One must be chosen, or both are cast away. The clan gathered again, their glowing eyes fixed on him. The circle of judgment reformed around the fire. The trial had been interrupted by blood, but now it returned heavier than before. The people wanted their law. They wanted a decision. Daniel's hands shook as he looked at the girls. The golden-eyed one pressed her forehead into his chest, whispering, "Choose me. I love. I give heart." Her small voice cracked with desperation. The taller one gripped his sleeve tightly, her tail trembling. "No, mine. I protect. I never leave." Her voice was fierce but broken. Tears burned in Daniel's eyes. He wanted to scream at the clan, to tell them this law was madness, but the elder's staff struck the ground, the echo cutting through his thoughts. "Speak now, human," he commanded. "The choice cannot wait." The girls trembled. Each one clung tighter. Their tiny claws dug into his skin, as if afraid he would vanish. Daniel's chest heaved. His mind screamed. His heart broke. He could not destroy one to save the other. Silence filled the ruins. The fire crackled. Sparks drifted into the night sky. Every eye was on him, waiting. Daniel rose slowly to his feet. His body swayed from weakness, but his voice was firm. "I will not choose," he said. The crowd gasped. The elder's eyes widened. His staff shook in his hand. "You defy the law," he demanded. Daniel's voice rose like thunder. "Yes, I defy it." His chest heaved. His fists clenched. "They both fought beside me. They both risked their lives. They both deserve to live. If you force me to choose one, then I choose neither. I walk away with both." Gasps filled the circle. Some shouted in anger. Others whispered in disbelief. The elder's staff struck the ground again. "Impossible," he growled. "The law cannot be broken." Daniel stepped forward, his eyes blazing. "Then cast me out too," he shouted. "But no, this I am human, and humans do not abandon those who trust us." His words shook the night. The cat girls clung tighter to him, their wide eyes filled with tears and hope. The clan murmured louder. Some turned their heads, ashamed. Others nodded slowly. The battle had shown them the truth. The two tiny cat girls had fought like warriors, side by side with the human. They were rivals, yes, but they were also survivors. The elder trembled with rage and doubt. "You speak like a fool," he hissed. "Their blood cannot accept this." Daniel raised his voice, stronger than ever. "Then their blood will change." His words were fire. "Because I will not destroy one heart to save another." The silence that followed was heavy. The fire flickered. The wind carried smoke into the stars. At last, the elder lowered his staff. His shoulders sagged under the weight of a law older than himself. His voice was low, almost broken. "If you walk this path, human, it will not be easy. You will face exile, rejection, danger from others who will not accept." Daniel nodded. His eyes softened as he looked at the girls, who clung to him like his shadow. "Then I accept it," he said. "I choose both." The crowd erupted. Some shouted in anger. Others cried out in shock. A few even cheered. The clan had never seen defiance like this. Never seen one man tear apart a tradition with nothing but his heart. The elder's staff hit the ground one last time. His voice was weary. "So be it," he said. "The human has chosen both. Their fate is tied to his. If he falls, they fall. If he survives, they survive." Daniel's chest rose with relief. The girls pressed their faces into him, whispering through tears, yours. Their voices blended, not in rivalry, but in something new. For the first time since his crash, Daniel felt the weight lift from his shoulders. The choice had been made, not the one the clan demanded, but the one his heart demanded, and though the road ahead was uncertain, he knew one truth with absolute clarity. He was not alone anymore. The night after the choice was quiet. The fires had burned low, and the clan scattered back to their ruined huts. Whispers still floated through the air. Some called Daniel foolish, others called him brave, but none could deny what they had seen. A human who defied the law, and two tiny alien catgirls who refused to break. Daniel sat on the edge of the village wall. His wounds stung, his body ached, yet his spirit felt lighter than it had since the crash. The two girls curled against him, one on each side. Their tails brushed across his legs, their soft ears twitched as they breathed. For the first time, they were not hissing at each other, not fighting for his sleeve or his glance. They were simply resting. Above them, the twin moons glowed, lighting the valley with silver light. Daniel lifted his head to the stars. He thought of Earth, of home. He thought of the life he had lost in the crash. And then he looked at the two fragile forms leaning on him. He realized something. He had not lost everything. He had found something new. The elder approached quietly, leaning on his staff. His gray eyes were tired. His voice was heavy but not cruel. "Human," he said, "you have broken the law. And yet, you have given us no choice but to watch. The bond you created cannot be undone." Daniel nodded, his voice calm. "I didn't choose to break your law," he said. "I chose not to break their hearts." The elder's eyes lingered on the two catgirls, their small faces soft in sleep, their hands still clinging to Daniel's torn shirt. For a long time, the old alien said nothing. Then he whispered, "Perhaps some laws deserve to change." When the sun rose the next day, the ruins felt different. The clan moved with quiet energy, rebuilding walls, burying the dead, preparing for the next storm. Daniel worked with them, carrying stones, lifting beams. His strength impressed them. But what truly caught their eyes was how the two tiny alien catgirls followed at his heels. No longer rivals, but companions. They still glared at each other at times. Their tails flicked in annoyance when one leaned closer to Daniel than the other, but they no longer shouted "mine." Instead, their voices blended softly, their whispers turned to ours. The younger ones of the clan watched in awe. They had never seen such a thing, a human bound not by one, but by two. A bond that had no name in their language, a bond created by choice, not law. As days passed, Daniel taught the girls small human ways. He showed them how to sharpen stones into proper blades, how to set traps for food. He told them stories of Earth under the stars. They listened with wide eyes, tails curled, their rivalry softened into laughter. Their small claws clutched at his arms, not with desperation, but with trust. The clan elders still watched, uncertain. Some whispered warnings, others shook their heads. But even they could not deny the truth. When danger returned, when the wind carried the sound of predators in the hills, the two catgirls stood not against each other, but together at Daniel's side. One evening, as the fire burned warm, the golden-eyed girl looked up at Daniel. Her small voice trembled, but it was filled with wonder. "Why? Why you stay?" she asked. Her language was broken, but her meaning was clear. Daniel's smile was tired but gentle. "Because you needed me," he said, "and maybe I needed you too." The taller girl's ears flicked, her eyes softened. For once, she did not argue. She only pressed her forehead against his arm, whispering, "Ours." That night, the stars seemed brighter. The clan gathered quietly, watching from the shadows as the human sat with the two girls. His arms wrapped around them, their tails curled together like threads weaving one cloth. Something had changed, not only for them, but for all who witnessed it. For, in the ruins of broken law, a new tradition had been born. Daniel looked to the sky, his voice low, almost a whisper. I thought I was stranded. I thought I was lost. His arms tightened around the girls. But maybe this is where I was meant to be. The two tiny alien cat girls purred softly, their small bodies safe in his embrace. For the first time, their rivalry had ended, not with loss, but with love. And in the heart of a ruined world, a human and two fragile survivors built something no law could ever command, a bond of loyalty, a bond of defiance, a bond of family.